Going live. So, what does Victor think about Super Tuesday, Trump, and politics in general on this wonderful March 2nd?
I really can't believe all the hate for Trump is coming out now when there's almost nothing anyone could do at this point to stop him.
Oh, it's not quite over. He didn't do as well as the polls theoretically said he would do.
Yeah, I notice how you're basically struggling to say that, as the reality is Donald Trump is going to be the nominee.
no. Look, the establishment still has one last chance to rally behind Rubio, I guess, and do something. Mathematically, it's still relatively open. However, it seems that the establishment, or at least a portion of the establishment, has done the deal I believe we talked about last time, where effectively Chris Christie is going to be the VP and be their representative in the new Trump administration.
Yes. No, that's the reality. You could see that reality dawning on Chris Christie, as everyone else noticed in Trump's victory speech. As Chris Christie went into the background as Trump was speaking, you could see in his face the realization of, by God, what have I done?
Yes. Oh, God. What have I agreed to? I should have just stayed governor. I mean, there were parts of Donald Trump's speech he definitely agreed with and was smiling about, and then there are the parts where he looked like he was somewhat constipated.
Yes.
No, I see he's obviously looking forward to his role as kindergarten cop.
Yeah.
But still, as I say, I mean, Cruz actually won 3 states, I think they're now saying, and Rubio actually won a state. And since it's all sort of proportional distribution of delegates, Rubio, Cruz, and Trump are all still within striking distance of actually winning.
Yes, but by the vote splitting that is happening, there is only one way they're going to defeat Donald Trump, and that is if Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz got into a back of a room
and
made a deal with each other, figured out how things were going to work, and managed
to the other one.
Well, there's that, or just came out with some kind of unified plan, they would then defeat Donald Trump. However, all of that died pretty much in Cruz's speech, where he basically sort of started alluding as if he was going to drop out for the good of the party. And then in a true satanic Lucifer moment, he basically said, Marco Rubio, if you don't drop out, you're going to kill America, and I am the only hope to defeat Donald Trump.
Now, I believe what he said, although I didn't watch the whole speech, was that anyone who hadn't won a state yet should drop out. And I believe he said it before people knew that Rubio had actually won one of the states.
That's kind of true, but no, he did specifically say Rubio, and Rubio, drop out. Drop out, Rubio. If you love America, drop out.
Yes, but however, Rubio has won one of these states.
Yes.
And now has got 94 delegates for a combination of that and coming in second in a couple other states.
Yeah, that's not going to be good enough. Look, if they were going to defeat Donald Trump, Super Tuesday was their moment to do it, and they failed.
No, it wasn't. But however, if Rubio and Cruz are both going to stay in the race, which they almost certainly will, then yes, it's just going to mean, for the most part, Donald Trump is going to rack up more victories.
Yes.
Theoretically, if all of the majority of the non-Trump votes went to one candidate, Trump would be stomped.
Yes.
but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. And
Nope.
the establishment hates Cruz, and Rubio is, well, young and inexperienced.
Young and experienced, and he doesn't really have it in him to make some of the ballsy plays he needs to make right now.
Well, the fact is, they've been running the standard campaign where those who aren't Trump try and take as few actual positions as they possibly can.
Yes.
They only take positions on things which they know the vast majority of Republicans will like, and then repeatedly reference them over and over again. And Rubio's a classic example of that, as was called out in a previous debate.
Yes, except there's a time when he should say, fuck this shit, it's time to start putting out actual positions and trying to get something going here.
Well, he will have that opportunity still. As I say, the Super Tuesday isn't quite as big a deal for the Republicans as it is for the Democrats. There's theoretically still time to turn this around. And I suppose the late night comedians are chiming in to do their bit by attempting to humiliate and bully Donald Trump, thus feeding into his message about how the establishment, especially the media establishment, hates him and tries to bully him.
Really, as someone that likes to quote the betting odds to me, at this point, what do you think are the odds of Donald Trump being the nominee?
The odds, I think, of Donald Trump being the nominee, I'd have to say about 75%.
75%! 75%!
But let's see, where is an odds maker page? Dun, 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 dun,
Let's see how rich certain people have now become.
All right, let's have a look. Oh, well, at least on electionbettingodds.com, I actually nailed it, almost did. They're going with 75.5% of Donald Trump becoming the Republican leader.
There we go.
It's actually come down a little bit. Apparently, it was over 80 at one point.
Oh, it came a little bit down.
Yes, it came all the way down to 75.5% of him being the Republican nominee. Now, to switch briefly to the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton is now on the odds, at least on this site, 94.8% of being the Democratic nominee. Although I have to say, she also didn't do quite as well in the actual winning of states as people had thought.
She did good enough. And the fact is the moment Sanders sort of went back into sort of protest mode, he lost. He didn't really want to be president.
Let's see, on the lovely Washington Post election Super Tuesday results page, Sanders won, yes, 4. In fact, he almost won Massachusetts as well. That's almost it's a toss-up. But yes, and he gained 340, Clinton gained 504. Technically, Sanders still has a shot here, although I don't think the upcoming primaries actually help him that much.
Just to say, I think Sanders, for what he represents and how he was trying to portray his campaign, he actually did have a shot. Just there came a point where if you're listening to him, you realize he actually didn't want to be president and really was running a protest campaign and didn't want to do the things he'd need to do to win the nomination.
Well, no, he doesn't want to do them. This entire point of his campaign is not doing the things everybody believes you need to do in order to win the nomination.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about just like attacking Hillary Clinton or so on. I'm talking about just properly defending him from Hillary Clinton's attacks.
You mean where she attacks him for attacking her?
Yes.
No. Actually, in that previous debate where she, tried to go at him with he's secretly smearing her as an argument, he actually pretty much won that exchange.
Yes, he won that
He pulled
exchange.
that straight back to his topic of, conventional politics and dirty financing.
Yeah.
Because that is his issue, and even if he's not coming out and directly attacking her about it, that sort of is the defining difference.
Yes, but there you go.
Point of view.
He kind of needed to at some point attack her for her shit.
No, what he needs is the press to attack her for her shit.
That too.
Really, he needs to stay sort of in that above the fray sort of, I'm this bumbling professor who is trying to do what's best for everybody, and I really do care, and you should elect me because it's better than having some sort of monster in charge.
Yes.
And then let the press attack Hillary Clinton on her weaknesses. However, unless they're the conservative press, that's just not going to happen.
No.
And the conservative press also thinks, well, that he's a communist and is going to destroy America.
He pretty much is a communist.
Well, yes, he's that sort of, softcore socialist communist that you got, decades ago. That's what he is.
Yes.
I mean, not the type that, wants to impose, Stalinist restrictions on everyone, not the people who called themselves communists who were in charge of the Soviet Union or China, but an actual legitimate communist.
Yes.
Which is basically just a utopian belief system which unfortunately can't possibly work amongst large numbers of people.
Well, it can't work with our current level of technology.
Okay, yes, if there is
implemented.
If there is some source of free energy for all, which gives humans replicators and unlimited ability to satisfy our basic wants and needs, then yes, communism might work in a mass society. But utopian systems tend really not to work with human beings in practice, no matter what type of utopian system they are.
That's usually because they decide to do things like, okay, we're going to implement our utopian system. First thing we're going to do is suspend the rule of law. And in the case of communism, we're going to give this committee of political appointees control over milk production.
Yeah, but even in the small scale.
And then you're not going to be allowed to criticize the Committee of Milk Production, as they basically create a shortage of milk because they have no idea what they're doing.
Well, it's human nature not to like criticism, and it's human nature if you give some small group of people power over everything, then they're going to not like it when you criticize them for anything stupid they did.
Yes. Which is pretty much how every utopian system, from communism to fascism and everything, ultimately collapses into shit.
Well, yes.
But still, going back, speaking of utopianism, well, maybe not utopianism, but so yes, now that Super Tuesday has been happening and Trump is becoming the nominee, yes, everyone is attacking Trump 110%.
Now, it sort of started off earlier. I mean, I believe last week tonight actually started the whole dump thing before Super Tuesday.
Yeah.
As I say, I sort of have to agree, although some of the points that Sargon and other people made I'm not so sure of, that effectively trying to bully and humiliate Trump is really more playing into his argument than anything else. I mean, possibly you can try and get him mad, so he'll say something stupid, but frankly, him saying something stupid doesn't really hurt him that much.
Pretty much, yeah.
And over you trying to be as big an asshole as Trump is to Trump because he's an asshole, which I have to admit sort of is their specialty, all that really does is build sympathy for him and justify his, well, being an asshole.
Yeah, and also the beliefs of his followers, and that they're only attacking Trump because they're part of the establishment.
Well, they are.
Yeah, they are.
That's sort of actually true.
Yes.
But, I mean, and also it shows up the huge weakness of the debates that effectively have been set up for the political candidates. I mean, really, if they were asking substantive policy-based questions to each candidate, not allowing the other candidates to interrupt and making them actually answer them, Trump would look like a bit of an idiot, like when he didn't know what the nuclear triad was.
Oh yes, he would have lost quite some time ago. Especially, and even the older style debates were just allowing the candidates to debate with each other, as opposed to this stupid, "Hi, I'm a member of the press corps. I have a gotcha question for you. Can you try and answer my gotcha question?"
Or can you try and not answer in the most artful way you possibly can?
Yes.
But the problem is they had so many candidates, they couldn't really do a true debate. Not that American politics ever really has specialized in having true debates between their candidates.
Okay, you can make that excuse for the Republican and slate, but what about the Democratic slate? They had the exact same debate format, and they had what, 4 candidates on stage? At times, just 2.
Yes, but as I say, there was a debate in which effectively, once it got down to just Hillary and just Sanders, there were some actual real debate exchanges about point and counterpoint.
Yeah. The debate exchanges eventually.
But yes, a lot of the we're going to ask you questions about what you feel about another candidate is sort of bullshit when you're trying to determine who should be the leader of your nation, especially when your nation is the most powerful one in the world currently.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, they need to get down to what are you going to do as president, and don't ask it like that. Ask about specific things, and then do a follow-up in case they try not to answer it,
Yes.
and then move on to the next person, do a follow-up. You can even have a follow-up of both of the journalist presenters, move on to the next candidate. I know it's not quite as exciting in reality television, but at least that way you'd force them to actually come up with answers to questions.
Oh, yes. No, and also if you asked the same question to all the candidates, they'd at least be able to come up with their answers.
Well, that's the problem. They ask questions, let's say, they jump a foreign policy question in on, say, Cruz or Rubio. Kasich desperately wants to answer this foreign policy question. And so at the end of it, he tries to jump in to say he has something to say, at which point, they shut him down or give him like a whole minute to respond to it. And then you get nothing out of it. And then they don't go on to ask the same question to the rest of the people. It's like they're just trying to collect sound bites. It's like they're trying to do a article for the front page of their website or something, instead of actually finding out what each of the candidates actually believes about the important issues which could get lots of people killed in the near future.
Yes, but I think it's just the debates have also turned into they want to try and choose winners. Choose who wins and who loses.
Well, they're doing a shitty job of it then.
They're doing a shitty job of it because...
Actually, I shouldn't say that. Hillary Clinton is winning, and she is basically the favorite of the majority of the press corps.
Yeah, she is. But in a way, you can see that eventually the Democrats are going to have their own Trump problem or Trump rebellion in the future. You could see it sort of bubbling with Sanders.
Well, Sanders sort of is the revolt. I mean, the thing which is going to come up later is if there have been any dirty tricks which have damaged the Sanders campaign, and there's becoming more and more evidence that there have been some, but that's normal in the political process. But if any of them can be traced back to an actual important member of the Hillary camp later on, it's going to really damage the Democratic Party in the long run.
That's kind of true, but I think there is some real truth to that the Republican Party did create the Trump movement. And this is the complete story, but to some extent, it's true that the reason he has gotten so much support is this massive anti-establishment anger that's been growing with the within the party that you could see in previous Tea Party candidates in previous elections that were able to kind of get the support, but then weren't able to make it happen. Like, you kind of saw that in Sarah Palin, that people supported her as an anti-establishment, but then she didn't run, and well, she was a moron. And other people that were trying to do it, but there was just the anger just quite wasn't gesticulated enough. That's probably the wrong term, but still, it quite hadn't boiled to the surface. And with Trump, it is finally overflowing. And you can even see it in the attitude of the Republicans, right? Like, it's taken till Super Tuesday for so many establishment characters to suddenly say, no, not Trump, no. Like, because before, I mean, this is where I think the Democrats are sort of right, or the left-wing criticism is right. The Republicans really were kind of dog whistling and kind of encouraging people that would support people like Trump, and trying to indicate, sure, we might have these views, right?
Yeah, sure. Trump will bring more people into the Republican Party. It'll be great. He'll lose in the first few primaries, and then we won't have to worry about him. But in the meantime, lots of new young people have come in and be interested in the party.
Yes, and sure, we'll just tolerate views of theirs that we don't actually share. Or it's not like their candidate is going to win, and we don't want to alienate them, so we're just going to let this go.
Yeah, and Cruz was a major player in that.
Yes, he is.
I mean, eventually the other ones began to turn on Trump, but effectively Cruz didn't really turn on Trump until Trump turned on Cruz, and they realized that one of them had to die.
Yes.
And admittedly, the other candidates were largely avoiding it. Eventually, Bush was the first one to make it a major point that he was going to attack Trump whenever he could. But that didn't really turn things around for him.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think he got a single delegate. Mind you, he's out, but...
Yeah, he's out. No, I think he got like a couple of delegates in the first few races.
Oh, well, I was just talking about Super Tuesday.
Oh, no, he's out. But yeah, but still, they kind of were playing that game, and they've been playing it for years, and it's now finally bit them in the ass. And you can see that same thing happening with the Democrats, right? Bernie Sanders is kind of like Trump, and he's getting that anger, but he's nowhere near the kind of bubbling resentment that is needed. When we finally see that pure progressive social justice warrior Tumblr candidate run in the Democratic primaries, then you will know that we are in a Democrat Trump crisis. It's going to happen. They are doing the same thing with their sort of dog whistling and kind of unwillingness to criticize the more excessive portions of progressivism they themselves don't seem to actually truly believe in. They're just blowing their little dog whistle, going, sure, sure. And they're just letting it go by with like, we know this thing at American universities is completely crazy, but we don't want to criticize these potential voters. So let's just let it go. Let's not report on it or discuss it. We'll let it slide. When Harvard University gets rid of the master title because of pressure that it might be inducive of slavery, we're going to let this slide. We're going to let the right wing sort of report on it. We want their votes. This will bite us in the ass in the future.
I think a good portion of it is just rose-colored glasses. They remember when they used to be in university and really wish they had, been one of those people who was out there protesting the man and, having protests, free sex, free drugs, free love. All the wonderful things that you think of happen on university campuses when you're not actually studying. And they just want to believe that anything which gives itself the progressive label and is trying to fight against the evil oppression of the past has to be fundamentally a good thing. Even if it seems to be getting a little too carried away. Well, frankly, back in the 70s, it also got a little too carried away on occasions. But there was an actual, war and draft. Well, heck, there's a war now. There's just no draft to protest.
Yeah. But even then, it's still the same way with the Republicans, right? They also were looking at things like even before the Tea Party movement with rose-colored glasses, and they were telling themselves the same thing.
Now, the fact is, a portion of the Republican establishment, mainly the evangelical portion, effectively took what started off as a sort of libertarian protest movement, Western protest movement, and they took it over almost completely.
Yes, they did.
The Tea Party went from being vaguely libertarian Western protest to a sort of outsider evangelical movement, and they transformed it from the inside within less than a year. It was gone from what it started out with and was simply a new weapon of the evangelical movement.
Yeah.
I mean, there's barely any of the original Tea Party people left in the actual Tea Party movement.
Yeah, but you can see that sort of happening with more of the left wing. Like when you look at the progressives are kind of symbolized, I guess, in the feminists, but we'll say the progressives, how they basically infiltrated and assimilated a good portion of the atheist movement.
Well, let's be careful here. The vast majority of feminists are not regressives. They're just people who sort of generally believe in equality and that women are in a somewhat oppressed position in our current society, and something needs to be done about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fringe of people who call themselves feminists who have used it as a cudgel to beat anyone who disagrees with them.
Yes, and
the rest of the sort of more casual feminists have sadly, for the most part, gone along with this fringe, even when this fringe says things which are patently
insane.
Wrong.
But yeah, you can still see that same thing with the Christians, right? Like a good portion of Christians, well, let's say a large amount of people identify themselves as Christians. The amount of true fundamentalist, gay burning Christians that are out there has never been more at least in recent times, hasn't been more than a fringe. However, they've kept getting enormous amounts of power because the rest of the Christians wouldn't smack them down.
Well, yes, but that's sort of always the problem. I mean, you're always far more tolerant of your own radicals than you are of other people's radicals.
Yeah.
And then whenever you attack certain radicals in a particular movement, the rest of the people can say, but that doesn't represent the majority of us.
Mm.
They're just a radical fringe, which we disavow on occasion.
Yes, disavow on occasion, maybe kind of, and on some level because are consistently complicit with their actions. Still, in sense of progressivism, and the progressive left, they have assimilated a good portion of the atheist movement. They basically did kick out a whole bunch of speakers and took over the conference circuit.
Well, not entirely. I mean, effectively, what's his name was invited back to
Dawkins.
that one. Dawkins was invited back to that one conference. Mind you, that conference was the one which had the reputation for being the most independent-minded and non-censorious of most of the atheist skeptic conferences, and it still, at least for a time, banned Dawkins from showing up.
Yeah, but they have basically been also going in and assimilating portions of the left wing from the environmentalist movement to other portions and continually building and building their power base. Like,
well, the environmentalist movement fell into a sort of religion quite some time ago. There's still some legitimate environmentalist organizations which are attempting to actually save the planet, but the public face of environmentalism has become effectively a secular religion.
Regardless of it, still, they have been taking over and spreading from one little leftist group to the other, pushing out anyone else that doesn't agree with them. From everything from the environmentalist movement to held comic conventions and the arts as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, effectively, their tools are more relentless harassment than anything else, but it does effectively push out the majority of casual people who disagree with them, and then the few hardcores can be picked off as being dangerous extremists.
Yes. And they're just advancing on their little way, and eventually this is going to reach critical mass, not in this Democratic primary, but probably in the future. There is going to be a celebrity-ish candidate, like probably, for the hell of it, let's say Lena Dunham, right? She's popular with the progressives and the extreme feminist movement. She runs and then starts getting a ton of support from her cause celebrity.
I suppose it's possible. I can't see her succeeding in a national campaign.
Yeah, no.
Because of some of the things she said.
Okay, you could say the same thing about Trump.
Yes, but Trump is willing to just stand there and take it and tell everybody to, well, go fuck themselves. I don't think Lena Dunham wants to go up in front of a large crowd, have people yell awful things at her, and then just give them the finger.
All right, fine. If not, still, you get my point.
Yes, I get your point. There's going to be areas, but I think for the most part, they're not going to go for Democratic contests. They're going to go for things which are appointed and then sort of bully people into appointing them. Like, I think a lot of them are going to push themselves on to, like, the boards of universities and colleges.
Yeah, which they already are.
Well, yeah, they already sort of have been getting positions there. But I think that's the thing that they're more likely to do. Exposing themselves to situations in which a large number of people will vocally disagree with them is not something this particular community likes to do.
even then, let's look at our example. Justin Trudeau. Justin
Okay, yes.
Trudeau is effectively a progressive of the nature of Tumblr.
I'd say a lightweight one.
A lightweight one, fine.
He's a
we'll go with that.
sympathizer.
No, a bunch of the things he's said and done. No, he's a little bit more than a sympathizer. He seems to actually believe it. But still, let's compare him to Trump for a moment, right?
Okay.
Criticism. Same people that will criticize Trump for getting $1 million from his dad to start up his business somehow would not criticize Justin Trudeau for inheriting daddy's entire fortune and political legacy.
Well, the political legacy thing, you have a point. But Justin Trudeau has never made a big deal of his money or that he's some sort of incredibly successful business person or money manager.
He has never made a big deal of it. That does not mean his entire ascension in the Liberal Party and his wealth is because of anything he's earned.
And, I mean, there was a little blowback about how pretty he was. Mind you, most of it was more fawning articles just saying how wonderful and pretty he was.
Yeah. And even then, Trump made a big deal of his business credentials. And say what you will, well, he at least has the experience of running $1 billion empire. Just that people were trying to make the case that Justin Trudeau is qualified to run the country from being an elementary school teacher for a little while and then taking time off to be a snowboard instructor.
Well, political skill is genetic, obviously. If his father had it, then he must have it.
Yeah, surely. We'll see that political skill any time now.
Well, yes. I mean, well, frankly, politically, it's been managed rather well for him. And, I mean, the point will come when the rubber hits the road and they have to do real things, like actually finish their budget.
Yes, with the other point of Justin Trudeau really didn't run on very much either. He, in fact, ran on, you could say, the exact crazy policy of Donald Trump on things like getting the refugees into Canada at a rate that was so breakneck and insane that any sensible person that had an understanding of Canada's resources were like, no, 20,000 refugees by Christmas isn't happening.
Oh, it could happen. Mind you, they didn't put in place anything like what was necessary to get that done in an organized fashion.
Yeah. They didn't know what they were doing, and they still don't know what they're doing or have been able to balance issues out, such as, well, we're bringing in all of these refugees and keeping them maybe in hotel rooms at other places, but at the same time, we don't know what to do with our current homeless problem of our own citizens that have no homes.
Yeah, but the homeless problem is somewhat of a different problem. Homeless people is, for a good portion of it, a drug and mental health issue.
You know what? You can say that, but at the same time, you kind of want to address that issue when you're bringing in.
You can never fully address that issue. You will always have a certain number of homeless people and people on the outside of society. At that point, you can never admit any refugees ever.
At the same time, fine. Still, you have to at least be able to explain why you're going to take in this many refugees and not doing something about the homeless situation, because that has been one of the largest criticisms of him bringing in the refugees. And also considering the way the economy of Canada is currently going, a lot of
Yeah,
people.
but there's a good case to actually bring in a bunch of actual families who have been properly vetted from first stop countries like Turkey and Lebanon and Jordan to Canada as a share, to take in our share of the people who have been displaced out of what is truly a horrendous conflict in Syria.
I'm not denying that. My point is they didn't think this through at all, and still haven't thought it through, and they still don't know exactly what they're doing. This is the thing that is similar between Trudeau and Donald Trump. They both are making a bunch of promises, or made a bunch of promises, that they knew people wanted to hear, but they don't actually know how to implement them. If you don't like the refugee example, how about marijuana, where the Liberals did promise we're going to legalize marijuana, and then suddenly a whole bunch of excuses on why we can't legalize marijuana or don't know how we're going to do it kind of maybe showed up.
Yes, that was a huge embarrassment. In fact, I'm surprised they didn't get more flack on that than they did, because good
Well,
grief. I mean, they effectively said, yes, we're going to legalize this, and then just said, nope, no, we're not.
oh, they didn't say even nope, we're not. They basically said, well, maybe not right away. We have to look at these treaties we didn't consider.
That's a no.
Yes, it is effectively a no, but they didn't say it. They let that carrot of hope stick around. After all, they have that police chief, I forget who he is, trying to figure out how to legalize it.
Uh-huh.
But still, this is the thing, right? It's quite clear at this point. They made a bunch of promises. They are now trying to figure out what they can or can't keep, or basically said a bunch of things to get elected, and now they have to deal with the rulership of the country. This is the fear of the Liberal, well, that has been for the NDP getting into power, except with the Liberals. And this is kind of the fear for Donald Trump, that he's going to get elected and have no idea what he's actually going to do. The thing is, Donald Trump has been horrifically criticized for this, whereas Justin Trudeau continues to get a continual slide on it.
Well, to be fair, the Liberal Party is a long-standing party with a long-standing sort of back room of actual political workers, which has been in charge of the country before. If you hadn't been paying attention, there's no reason to believe that the Liberal Party couldn't govern Canada. It now turns out that they seem to have gutted themselves of the majority of their experienced actual bureaucratic operatives as opposed to political operatives, and may not know how to actually run the system.
I'm willing to say at this point they do not know how to run the system.
Well, as I say, the budget being delayed and their strange desire to poll the public on what they should include in something that they should have already written is not inspiring confidence. But I'm also willing to wait a little while and see if they can actually meet their deadline for producing a budget that actually is a budget. I'm just worried that they're not going to meet it.
It's worse than that. It is, well, guys, we're going to announce the budget on this day. However, just FYI, it's going to include a larger than previously prophesied deficit. How large? We don't know right now. It's going to be larger. It could get to 20 billion. It could even get to 30 billion. Why would anyone actually start saying these things?
Well, yes, especially that last part of we don't know how big it's going to be.
Yes.
The one thing the financial world hates more than anything else is uncertainty.
Yes.
And when you effectively say you don't know what's going to happen, your market and your dollar tanks.
Yes, which it did.
I mean, it would
Like,
have been bad enough they just said it's going to be a giant budget deficit. Well, the Canadian dollar is going to tank a bit. If they say it's going to be a giant budget deficit, but we don't know how much of a giant budget deficit, then your dollar takes a nosedive.
yes, like in a way, it's not that terrible politics. At least you're preparing people for that there's going to be a larger deficit, and you're getting that idea in their head. At the same time, it's a terrible way to run the country.
Well, no, I mean, there's a case to be made for investment. If they can, but this is actually somewhat difficult, but if they can actually lock in the money they borrow at the ridiculously low interest rates, like, say, 1%, then borrowing multiple billions of dollars right now to invest in infrastructure is almost certainly a good investment, as long as it isn't denominated in terms which can eventually go up.
Yeah, but still, that's besides the point, right?
Yeah, the point is that they're not actually saying a number. They're just scaring the shit out of everyone.
Yes, they're scaring the shit out of people with multiple weeks to go till the budget is even revealed. And that's assuming they don't even delay that further, which is actually looking like might even happen.
At which point the dollar can crash once again.
Yes, the dollar could crash once again. But see, this is the thing, right? It was quite obvious by what Justin Trudeau was saying and the way he was running things that that the Liberal Party was not in a shape to run the country. And he was pretty much like the opposite version of Donald Trump. Just no one was willing to call him on it.
Yes, effectively. I mean, he doesn't have access to nuclear weapons. And no, he's really worried that he's going to invade anyone.
Yes.
But yes, he is sort of the Canadian left-wing version of Donald Trump. At least it's appearing that he is the Canadian left-wing version of Donald Trump, except he has media support and people saying how wonderful he is all the time.
Yeah.
But eventually reality is going to come home if he can't actually produce a functional government. And that's also the problem that you potentially have with Trump. Admittedly, the criticism of Trump is the thing most likely to get Trump to actually hire the people who will make it look like he isn't an incompetent.
And
but
actually, to be fair to Donald Trump, his tax plan is fantastic.
Yes, Donald Trump knows some smart people, and he occasionally even listens to those smart people. But sometimes he doesn't.
Yes, which is kind of the problem with putting people that have no idea what they're doing into power. Like with Justin Trudeau, the main argument was, well, you know, the Liberals will just give him a whole bunch of advisors. But you don't have to listen to your advisors, and you have to have a certain understanding of what's going on in order to know which advisor to listen to and which one, and maybe you shouldn't. Like, even with Ronald Reagan, the example of an actor that could become president of the United States and do usually even some of the worst criticism of him, a reasonable job, people forget that he was governor of a state for multiple years.
Yeah. Well, the other thing was he surrounded himself with smart people, and he largely let them do what they wanted to do with what he had put them in charge of.
Yes.
And that worked relatively well. But I don't think Trump has that sort of self-control / laziness.
Well, that's again the problem with Justin Trudeau and Trump. Justin Trudeau's experience in politics was being a liberal backbencher and critic. That doesn't actually give him the experience of running things. And Trump's problem is, yes, he's had the experience of running a multi-billion-dollar empire. But his actual problem is he has not actually been in a situation where he couldn't fire someone. He didn't be he couldn't just fire someone he wasn't getting along with. He actually has to work with other people to come up with a deal that doesn't necessarily benefit him to get anything done. And business deals are actually different from political deals.
Well, there is some similarity.
There's some similarity, but even then, there's just then the foreign policy problem, which both of them also have. Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump have very little idea of how the world works outside of their own countries. They don't understand what the issues are in play. They don't really understand who are the power brokers and what are they trying to achieve. And they don't understand where the United States should be, or Canada should be positioned for it. Trump basically seems to believe that the United States doesn't have to work with anyone, or that he'll cut a deal with them, and that he can cut off the head of ISIS and take their oil.
Well, this is where the business deals come in. In business, there are no permanent alliances and no permanent loyalties. There's just the deals you cut with each person for each situation.
Yes.
Problem is, the US is the head of NATO.
Yes.
And while the rest of NATO has sort of been just putzing around, not doing its job, not fulfilling its commitments, there's a real reason why the US, even if it does have to effectively do almost everything, wants NATO to continue to exist.
Yes. At the same time, Justin Trudeau and his government, with their foreign policy experience, have already, in the span of a few months, effectively stopped sharing intelligence data with our allies.
Well, I mean, politically, this isn't that bad for him. And for Canada, it's not an essential. But yes, effectively, if any real problem comes up, they've effectively cut all the intelligent links, not just to the Americans, but also to the Brits and the Australians.
And New Zealand, yes.
And New Zealand, yes. And which means that effectively, if, say, the Russians decided to land on Baffin Island and set up some perfectly scientifically legitimate weather stations, Canada might be the last country to find out about it.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, and even then, going on other things, just his trip where he went around the world and promised something like $5 billion in foreign aid, which is kind of nice, but the optics for it, considering Canada's in economic dire times, was terrible. Not to mention, he just seemed to be throwing money out because he felt like it.
Well, it sort of was that he was throwing money out to make Canada look good and repair our public reputation, but it was an awful lot of money that he promised, which he's now going to look sort of bad on when he doesn't come through with it anytime soon.
Or even if he does come through on it anytime soon.
Well, I suppose, yes, they are borrowing a large amount of money. I suppose they could stack another $5 billion of foreign aid on top of that.
Yeah. And there's other things, like even with the climate conference where they got like a massive amount of people to attend, many of whom had no business at an actual conference.
Well, yes, that sort of was like a giant student trip where they loaded the entire fraternity into the bus to take them to a political debate meeting and then had a party.
Yes, without realizing that these conferences, while there are parties at them, are actually meant to be serious fucking occasions. And it's where you discuss serious things and come up with serious deals.
Well, that's what they're meant to be. To be fair, only about half of them actually have any chance of coming up with any real deal whatsoever. They're mainly talking shops where people try and sculpt the presentation of how they're concerned with the issue.
Even then, you don't bring mayors you like along with their entourages, your wife, your children, their nannies. And I'm not even talking about this from a wasting money perspective. I'm just talking in the optics to other countries where you have a delegation of something like 6 or 30 people, and the Canadian delegation is 1,000 people, many of whom have no business being there.
Well, there are all these new people who have suddenly got into power, and they want to all take advantage of the wonderful perks of being able to go to exotic locations and have their hotel stays covered.
Yeah.
Because, that's totally what the conservatives did, so it's only fair that now that we're in power, we get to do the same thing.
No other government does this. Even corrupt governments currently don't do that.
No, but it's what they thought corrupt governments did.
Yeah.
I mean, and there certainly is some of that. It's just usually if, some conservative prime minister heads over there with just his nanny and his kids so they can take a vacation down in the village at the base of the mountain where they're all talking, he usually gets slammed in the press for it.
Yes, slammed in the press for it. And everyone says, wow, this person's a moron. Whereas this is supposed to show how committed Canada is to fighting climate change.
No, yeah, it shows a lack of commitment to fighting climate change, but
still, the point is, this shows how little him and his government understand foreign policy and how it works.
Yes, normally there should be an adult in the room who has been to these sort of events who tells people how they go.
Yes.
And then you listen to that adult and you only bring a few extra people on their free paid vacation.
Yes. Not everyone that I guess is on your private Facebook group. But see, this is the thing. Trudeau is effectively the far left version of Donald Trump. Arguably, as we've argued this out, he actually has less qualifications than Trump.
Yes. However, he has a much more pleasant and political manner, which makes him far more acceptable to the elites in politics and the press than Donald Trump does.
Yes, he's not an overt asshole.
No, he's social and not in any way autistic.
But see, this is the problem, where the only difference between, the main difference between Trump and Trudeau being qualified to lead is that Trudeau sounds nice, and Trump does not. That actually is kind of terrifying.
That's sort of terrifying, but once again, Canada, I mean, I hate to say this to any Canadians who might be listening, isn't that important.
It's not that important. However, Canada has a tradition of having pretty good leadership. I mean, I can only think of one prime minister in history up to this point that actually did a really terrible job, and that was Robert Borden. All of the other prime ministers were pretty smart people that had an overall positive impact on the country. That tradition, I think, has been broken. might I say, even Robert Borden was a very smart man. He was just completely soulless and evil.
Well, if you want to go with smart people who were soulless and evil, then Chrétien pretty much qualifies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And while he was intellectually smart, Martin was not an effective prime minister.
Well, but he still overall had a positive impact in his short reign. Stephen Harper had an overall positive impact. Sure, you could debate. No, he did. Look, you could debate the minor things, and yeah, they all also did some stupid asshole-ish things, from Harper's trying to change the definition of citizenship, which
or destroying decades of scientific research.
they're destroying decades of scientific research, but he also did do other positive things that does actually make him more palatable and positive in the historical sense, and he was a smart man. This is the first time in Canadian history I could say the Canadians did not elect a smart person as prime minister. President is a different matter. Every once in a while, you do get an American president that is a dumbass.
I don't know.
However, the thing with American presidents is at least they don't have that much power, and in the worst case scenarios, as has happened in history, the Congress can tell them to go fuck themselves.
Yes, but we are still talking about somebody who's seen as the political leader of the United States, effectively runs their foreign policy and their military.
Yeah.
It's
Oh no, it's still bad.
And I think you're also missing some of the Canadian prime ministers who admittedly their reigns were extremely short, but really sort of were screw-ups. Namely Kim Campbell and Joe Clark.
Kim Campbell, fine. I actually know very little about her. But still, she reigned for what, was it, a month?
More like 4?
Yeah, 4 months. And she was appointed by Mulroney when he left with virtually zero chance of winning the election.
Admittedly, there is that. She didn't get much of a chance to prove herself, and Joe Clark just sort of simply screwed up right from the bat.
Even then, he had screwed up on the budget, but at the same time, he was...
No, he screwed up in calling the election right away because he thought he could do better and win an election which was called less than a year after he became prime minister.
Yes, that is true. At the same time, he did that. It was essential in negotiating the Cyprus peace accords.
Okay, yes, he did actually achieve some good things during his very, very short tenure.
Yes, he actually did play an essential role playing Canada's diplomatic cards they had at that time correctly to negotiate those peace accords.
Yeah, but still, that's one thing. And it's not even that important to Canada.
Even then, still, he did it. It's an achievement. And I'm talking in a general sense. To counter to that, even if they weren't that bright, they only stayed in office for a very short period of time. They did not, even if they were not bright, they lasted few months and that was it, and then we went to someone else.
Also, apparently, there was a very short prime ministership of John Turner, which I know very little about.
I think he took over as prime minister really briefly. when Trudeau resigned? Was it? Not sure.
Well, he took over right after Trudeau, and it was a Liberal Party succession. Yeah, he was named leader.
Ah, yes.
So, yeah.
But
I
even then,
guess, yeah, he was sort of left at the tail end, sort of like Kim Campbell was.
yeah, still, Canada, at least to be proud of itself up till now, did have a good run of leaders.
Well, effectively,
Well.
it was the parliamentary system working like the parliamentary system was designed to work. Basically, you find the most capable person in the party, because they don't have to face election directly themselves for the position of leader, except in the party, and you make them the leader of the party to hopefully make sure your party stays in charge.
And I guess if we're really going to keep going in this direction, although we should probably make another video about it at some point, rather than, or like the thing is,
Yes,
at least
we're
people
drifting.
are attacking Donald Trump, right? The media is attacking him and saying why he's bad and trying to explain it. Whereas with Justin Trudeau, they basically gave him glowing reviews when anyone intellectual or in the political sphere was watching this, was basically going, good God, what are they doing?
Yes, he did a bunch of things like airing the dirty laundry of Canada and its allies in public without actually giving a reason, for no apparent reason, and a bunch of deals which Canada really isn't a position to fulfill. But
for that matter, with him being the vanguard of progressivism, look, part of the reasons the Liberals keep him supported and keep that support is the idea of they go with things like, well, look at how diverse his cabinet is and so on, with the implication that anyone that is against him has to be an evil racist conservative.
Well, pretty much the only people who are speaking out against him are the people that the left wing believes are evil racist conservatives.
A portion of the left wing, but still, no, like other people have in the election campaign, a whole party of left wingers were talking about how stupid he was as well. They just weren't getting any airtime.
Well, yes, I mean the CBC, far more than even they screwed over the Conservatives, screwed over the NDP this last election cycle.
Yeah.
Their coverage was amazingly biased.
Yes,
to things like, oh damn it, what was his name, the leader of the NDP?
Thomas Mulcair,
yeah,
Mulcair, the leader.
Oh, is he still?
Well, they haven't. He said that it's going to be put to the conference leadership review, and if he doesn't get the certain percentage of the votes, then an election will be called. Well, he should have probably stepped down. To be fair, he is going through with the process that actually had been established.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fair. I mean, if they want to get rid of him, they have to step up and do the job.
Yes.
Not just try and guilt him out of it.
That, and at least it does give some time for him to basically well, for the party to see who might want to take up the reins and actually run in an actual leadership race and have a proper leadership race this time around.
Which would be nice. Yeah. But in any case, yes, the idea that, Thomas Mulcair comes out against something and makes a big position statement about it. And then belatedly, Justin Trudeau also comes out and takes a position on it. And they cover Trudeau's statement as if he said it first and Mulcair is copying him.
Yes.
Oh, and then there's the whole debacle about the actual Liberal leadership race, in which effect it looks like the media conspired in what is effectively a conspiracy against democracy to ensure that the leading candidate to become the Liberal leader doesn't become the leader by falsely reporting on the poll numbers.
No. It just kind of looked like that. We don't actually know if the highly qualified astronaut, Mr. Garneau, I believe it was his name, dropped out because of the poll numbers, or if the poll numbers were intentionally fudged to make him drop out and pressure him to dropping out.
Well, the poll numbers were very wrong, quite obviously wrong to anyone who later looks back at the actual data. And then there was a large amount of pressure on him to unite behind the leading candidate so that the Liberals would finally have a shot of regaining their position in government.
Yeah.
It would take one hell of a coincidence for the people who sort of massaged the numbers in a particular direction in an article to not have any connection or any discussion or any talks with the people who then wrote the articles saying that we all needed to unite behind Justin Trudeau as the leading candidate in order to save the Liberal Party.
Well, yes.
That has all the hallmarks of what could actually be a prosecuted conspiracy to undermine democracy in Canada.
Right. But this is how those things, again going with Trump, is leading to Trump and is sowing the seeds for the Democrats of the United States getting their progressive tumblerina candidate. They also are quite obviously fucking around with things from Hillary Clinton somehow magically, or some of the things the Hillary Clinton campaign has been implicated in.
Now, there has been no proof which has come forward. Mind you, the people who are in charge of investigating for the proof are possibly the people who are implicated in doing it.
Yeah, it's sort of like with the whole Justin Trudeau thing, isn't it? Like, even if you go for that, the Democratic debate, as we were talking about at the beginning of this, it's quite obvious how horrifically biased they were in those debates to Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders. And then for O'Malley and some of the other couple of candidates that were up there, they basically didn't let them talk at all.
Well, no, they let them talk. They just let them talk with certain questions.
Certain questions would cut things off to commercial and write the worst possible moment for certain candidates. It was basically, Hillary Clinton, why are you going to be so wonderful as president? Bernie Sanders, why are you the socialist devil incarnate and is going to destroy America?
Now, it's not that bad. It's, why do people think you are the socialist devil incarnate who's going to destroy America?
Yes. Hillary Clinton, do you like babies? Bernie Sanders, do you like people all losing their jobs?
No, Bernie Sanders, why do certain people think that attempting to implement your policy will cause everyone to lose their jobs?
Yes.
Hillary Clinton, why is Bernie Sanders attacking you on your desire not to have everybody lose their jobs?
Yeah. People notice this stuff, and it's going to come to a point where, with part of the reason people aren't able to stop Donald Trump is because, one, certain portions of the media are backing him, like Breitbart, but also because people no longer believe anything they're saying.
Well, they've given them good reason not to believe things that they are saying.
And also, it took a while till people in the Republican establishment really came out against Donald Trump. And the thing with the Democrats is, when did special tumbler Justin Trudeau, and will actually probably will not be as light as Justin Trudeau, will probably be a extreme SJW comes to ums, they're going to have a real tough time dealing with it, and probably by the time they're going to really mobilize to try and attack this person, it's going to be too late.
Well, the problem is that they're probably going to allow more and more of their actual people in charge of their mobilization campaign and their activist wing are going to become more and more extreme. And then by the time they realize they need to do something about it, it's actually going to be a chunk of their own party bureaucracy who's going to effectively be fighting them on it.
Kind of like what has happened in Canada with Justin Trudeau, except there was basically no fight about it.
Yeah, no, in Canada we didn't have a fight about it. The only alt media we have is some guy and his friends yelling stuff on YouTube.
Ah, Rebel Media.
Yes. I mean, he's about it for the alt media in Canada.
Yes, now, to be fair to Canada, the media has basically devolved to the point where there isn't that much of a media anymore or news organizations, but the CBC is government run effectively, and it has been known for a long time to have been seeded with liberal supporters. It now has just come that they're a very particular kind of liberal supporter, and that, I think, is what's going to happen to the Democrats in the United States.
The United States is a bit of a weird case. I could see that happening in most European countries. In fact, in a lot of them it already has. And I could definitely see them slowly beginning to take over the Democratic Party and its machinery. But the Democrats still rely on a large body of working class voters who think all of this is stupid.
Yeah, and they'll have a fight like the Republicans are, where a portion of their party is going to look at Donald Trump and want to take a suicide tablet.
Well, the problem is what they need is a series of actual debates. Now they've effectively winnowed it down to 3 or 4 candidates remaining.
That's what they need. But this is the thing. This is what's creating people like Donald Trump and allowing them to advance as far as they are. It's this gaming of the system continually, to the point where they do leave it open for people like Donald Trump to get through. Like, it's part of the reason the system, the debates are the way they are, isn't because this is a better format. It's because they wanted a more entertaining debate, and they wanted to pick and choose their candidate. That actually became even more obvious for the Republicans with the Megyn Kelly Fox News debate, which Donald Trump surprisingly made the best decision of not attending.
Well, that's the thing. Both parties have structured their debate systems with their sort of we're going to farm it out to certain journalists, certain not journalists, certain corporate organizations to arrange for us, so that our candidates can say as little as possible while presenting themselves to the public in effectively a beauty contest.
Yes.
So that they'll be damaged as little as possible when it comes around to the primary election, when they may have to actually take a position against the person they're running against in the other party.
Yes, and we'll massage these beauty pageants so the candidate we want will get the right questions, whereas the other ones will get the bad questions.
Yes. No, effectively, they're sort of rigged beauty pageants, which are arranged between the party organization and these corporate people and the pet journalists they decide to allow to interview the contestants. And Donald Trump has just set that on its head. Effectively, yes. I mean, the actual Democrat versus Republican debates get a little more serious, but the internal party primaries were effectively glorified reality television.
Yes.
And I believe, as some YouTube pundits have shown, Donald Trump knows more about reality television than the rest of the candidates.
Oh, yes. And this whole rigging of the system, or attempting to, is what is helping cause this, because it's making it harder and harder for them to deal with their more extreme portions. And just by constantly this dog whistling that's been going on, like for the Republicans, it has been their dog whistling for the Islamic phobic and the outright racist, you could say, and also libertarians and other people that have been disaffected, and well, fascists, and other right-wing groups, which they've been sort of trying to appeal to, but haven't actually wanted them to have a place in the party, is backfiring, because that's a portion of Donald Trump's support right there. And it is quite clear at this point with Donald Trump's ascension that they never believed in any of these things.
Well, yeah. Look, the actual bureaucracy of the Republican Party is a mainstream center-right party which wants to win elections.
Yes.
They're sort of uncomfortable with all of the various little extreme groups within their party, even the ones which effectively seem to be dominating it right now, like the fundamentalist community.
Yes, but then you get into this thing with the Democrats and the left, where you keep having incidents, for example, these things on college campuses, where it's quite clear that
Actually, I should not say fundamentalist, I should say evangelical. Calling them fundamentalist is a bit too far.
But still, you can see the same thing with social justice warriors or the progressives on college campuses and some of the things they've been doing. And you can tell that a portion of the mainstream portion of the left doesn't actually agree with this, because they're really refusing to really report on it. They just want it to go away.
Yes, they don't want to report on the things which are obviously wrong, which the more extreme members of their group are doing.
And they are dog whistling to these people, trying to indicate, sure, we agree with your views. Sure, we do.
Yes, well, there was a whole bunch of blatant dog whistling when it came to the Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter questions, and then Hillary Clinton on various feminist issues, which she has never really backed in office ever.
Yeah. And all of that dog whistling and all of this rigging, it's not time for the Democrats yet for their mass rebellion, but it's going to be in probably the next round of primaries.
Well, by the next round of primaries, you mean, in 4 years' time.
4 or 8 years' time. Depends if Hillary becomes president or not. Which is the other thing. If Hillary loses, it's going to happen in 4 years. It is going to be for the Democrats really bad.
If Hillary loses and we get Trump, we're going to have a random dice roll of what the crisis is 4 years from now.
Oh, no, but still. One thing that history has shown is extremist groups feed off each other, and Trump supporters do feed off of the progressives.
Oh, yes, they will. And the fact is, the Republican Party has been stockpiling its ammunition over the various foibles of the progressive or regressive left, however you like to say it, which they're almost certainly going to bring out during the presidential election.
Yes, they will.
Because they have lots and lots of ammunition, and America's college campuses and college campuses around the world are providing them with more of it every day.
And again, there's a good chance Donald Trump is going to win.
I still think that's a long shot. Just like I think there's a 75% chance of Donald Trump winning the Republican. I think it's about a 75% chance that Hillary Clinton is going to win over Donald Trump.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I would agree with you if the debates between Trump and Clinton will be debates of actual policy and what is going to happen.
Oh, no, they're going to be screaming matches. And I don't think there's going to be that many of them.
Yeah, and I think in the end, Trump will end up winning those screaming matches.
Yeah,
Not in the sense the people will suddenly like him, but he'll mobilize his supporters and people enough that he'll end up winning in the actual race.
Look, the path to there are two paths to victory for Donald Trump, because right now the electoral map does not look good for him. The polling does not look good for him. There's only really two things. Something horrendous happens which destroys Hillary's credibility, like actual evidence that she should have been federally indicted becomes out, and it's so clear and obvious that all the press has to actually cover it. And or Donald Trump somehow manages to invigorate such a turnout of previous non-voters, while the regular Democratic voters are so unmotivated by Hillary Clinton that they barely turn out, that he pulls the biggest polling upset possibly in electoral history.
And I'm thinking the latter is going to happen. Look, I've pointed out this before when we talked about this. Donald Trump supporters love him, and Donald Trump loves his supporters more than anything else in the world.
Yes.
Love
as much as Poll loves Donald Trump, their new god emperor, there aren't actually that many people on Poll.
No, but still, he has gotten one of the highest turnouts for Republican primaries ever.
In certain states, yes. The fact was his turnout for Iowa was actually rather poor.
Yeah, but in most of the other states, and for that matter, the Republicans in general have been getting massive turnouts. The interest in the Republican Party and their primaries is huge.
Well, it's reality television, and you have your villain. Everybody loves the villain on reality television.
All right, but the Democratic primary has been rather poorly attended, and there's no excitement there. There's no excitement for a Hillary Clinton presidency, only so much as that she could stand up and not get Donald Trump elected.
Yes, but Donald Trump isn't in her race yet. Once it's a Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, a bunch of people are going to come out to vote. But a bunch of them are going to come out to vote against Trump.
That's true.
I mean, the election may effectively be the Trump election. Hillary Clinton may be incidental to it. But at that point, it's a race between people who are coming out to vote against Trump versus people who are coming out to vote for him. And usually the villain on the reality television series, although they're the most popular character and the most interesting character, they usually don't win in the end.
All right. That is possible, but note the usually part. And also, there's a third point. Donald Trump actually does know the Clintons and their friends. And for that matter, Chris Christie knows them.
Yeah.
Out of any candidates, they're the most likely to know what stones to unturn. And Trump really has been pushing the idea that he will prosecute Hillary Clinton. And Chris Christie, when he said those words in his speech, well before he went into his "oh God, what have I done?" basically he started looking, yes, I'm going to prosecute her. I hate her so much look.
Yeah, but people have been trying to bring down and prosecute the Clintons for a very long time. Admittedly, if they're elected, they'll have the best shot possible of doing that. But in the run up to the election, if there was actual real proof which would be accepted by her own supporters that she was involved in a crime, it would have come out.
Not quite yet, but we'll have to see.
I mean, there's some possibilities that there is some sort of smoking gun in the emails that everybody has so far overlooked. But I think it's mostly going to be a large amount of circumstantial evidence, which is just sort of embarrassing and is going to be overwhelmed by the fact that people are voting for and against Trump.
Fair enough.
Not for Hillary at all. I don't think people are really going to vote for Hillary. They're going to vote for and against Trump.
All right.
And I think she wins that.
I actually think she might end up losing that. Look, there's a bunch of positive sayings people see in Trump that will cause them to vote for him. There is that he is the ultimate rebellion against the establishment, and all these people that are telling them on TV to hate him. This is your way of getting back at them. Two, he can work a crowd. He seems genuine. Not saying that he is. I think he can appear that he's very genuine. He does actually seem to believe what he's saying.
When he says it.
And to the majority of people, he has been built up really as a true billionaire, successful businessman. They've seen him be this massive success for years and years on The Apprentice.
Yes, and he has giant copies of his name on buildings all over the place.
And a lot of Americans really do have a not even unjustified fear of Islam and what's going on, and their country isn't as great as it used to be, and haven't really appreciated people constantly saying that these fears they have, which aren't unfounded, means they're instantly racist. And I say unfounded in the sense of that when a religious group is constantly trying to do terrorist attacks in your country, yeah, you get afraid of them. That's a human reaction.
Well, it's once again the case of the extremes of a particular movement feeding off each other, and the sort of centers of those political movements ignoring the actions of the extremes on their particular side.
Yes.
This applies to political parties and religions.
Oh, yes. And the thing is, I think Trump is going to tap into that in the general election as they see him continually winning. And the more and more people are going to hear him and go, you know what? I too have been harboring this fear about Islam, and while I have not been allowed a healthy avenue of discussing this fear, maybe learning a bit more about it, and then learning it's probably not nearly as scary, as terrifying as it is, this guy named Trump is giving me the option of stepping on it with my shoe and not feeling bad about it.
Yes, he will definitely bring out those people.
And I think also, might I just say, I think this is where I think even Sargon of Akkad has sort of, and John Oliver have missed it, is that all of this stuff of them well, I guess Sargon of Akkad did hit on it, but still, even on the left wing, all of this stuff has been there. This maybe small twinge of racism has been there, but constantly not letting people just discuss it and let it out because of this fear of being called racist is a good portion of where Trump is getting his support from. There is a lot of people that have had fears and things that they have not been able to healthily express, that they can now express it in saying, "Make America great again. You can't stump the Trump."
Well, that's the thing. At this point, the rallying call of college students and other people who are upset with somebody trying to shut them down for having wrongthink is to yell Trump, Trump, Trump at them, whether they support Trump or not.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And people are going to back Trump for this. People on the left are going to back Trump for this.
Well, some of them.
I'm not talking in terms of the media and celebrity. There's no one in the media that is going to support Trump right now, at least the mainstream media. However, a lot of the smaller people that still have wide reach, or even smaller people, yeah, they're going to back Trump. Hell, you could even see it as a Sargon of Akkad, where he said, I don't like Trump, but in a way I sort of like Trump, but I'd rather Bernie Sanders win. But the most important thing is the establishment doesn't win. And you can almost see how he's trying to justify in his head of that, I have to actually support Donald Trump.
No. He's still clinging to the hope that Bernie Sanders will actually win the Democratic nomination.
And what are the odds that when Bernie Sanders lose, or we'll say if Bernie Sanders lose, that Sargon of Akkad will support Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump?
I think he'll actually have some consternation on that one. I mean, I know he really doesn't like Hillary Clinton, but I don't think he's going to, come out and give his, endorsement of Donald Trump.
Let me put it to myself right now. In a race between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, I can say on the record right now, I would rather Donald Trump win.
Oh.
After everything I have said in this hour and a bit.
I don't know. If I could be more confident in the people he had around him, that he was putting in charge of running things like the economy and foreign policy, maybe.
Yeah, I know.
But Hillary Clinton, I mean, she's awful. She's establishment. She's in the pocket of the financial criminals who are currently running our economy. But I'm pretty sure she won't get anybody nuked.
See, even how hard it is for you.
Yeah. And the other thing is, she's going to be facing off against a Republican Party. Well, frankly, either of them is going to be facing off against a Republican-controlled Congress. I mean, in actual legislation, I don't think Trump will get most of his insane things through. And Hillary Clinton won't get any of her, well, actually, some of her insane things, since it's establishment things, might actually get through. I mean, the one thing I like about Trump is he disrupts things, and there's an actual possibility that the people who have been committing crimes over and over again, it's quite obvious there's been books and movies made about the crimes these people have been committing, might possibly be prosecuted.
Yeah. No, look, this is the difference between Justin Trudeau and Trump. Trump actually has put forward good things. The tax plan will be an amazingly great benefit to the United States.
All right, the tax plan is good.
With Chris Christie, the odds of a whole slate of people that deserve to be prosecuted for a while now getting prosecuted will be up to about 80%, especially since they have not shown their love for Donald Trump, and Trump now hates them.
Well, we'll see what Chris Christie wants to decide on there. Because remember, Chris Christie and the entire state of New Jersey is heavily influenced by high-frequency traders and the financial establishment, because the bulk of them actually operate out of New Jersey.
Fair enough.
And that's one of the things Trump did do, which I was very impressed by, is he wanted to get rid of an insurance law, which I believe dates back to the 1950s or 60s,
Yeah.
which was effectively allows the insurance companies to collude with each other to set insurance rates.
Yes, I know. Isn't that great?
He actually has said something about getting rid of it, a law which should have been gotten rid of decades ago.
Yes. He
By
wants to get rid
any
of it.
reasonable, well, Democrat or Republican. The Democrats should hate this thing because it's basically a massive burden on the working class. The Republicans should hate it because it's effectively allowing collusion by big moneyed interests to rig the economy.
Yes.
But instead, both of them have effectively taken the insurance company's money and allowed this obvious fraud to continue for decades.
Oh, yes. And the thing, Trump does have some good policies. The problem is, well, it really comes to foreign policy where it seems
He knows nothing.
he knows nothing. I mean, the thing people really should have focused on was not that he end Muslim immigration. It is the point of that he actually put into his ad until we know what's going on, showing I don't know what's going on, and we have to stop all Muslims from coming to the States until I know what's going on.
Yeah, but the fact is that hits with a lot of people. A lot of people don't understand what's going on. They've been told what's going on. The media keeps on telling them, but then things keep happening, which shouldn't be happening.
That and the media has done a really they've done a shitty job of explaining what's going on if they've tried it all. But sorry, you were saying.
Yes, those who have actually tried to explain what's going on as opposed to making up fairy stories.
Hmm.
No, I mean, he's hitting on certain things, but he's the villain. He's not safe. It's going to take some major blunder on the Clinton side, and she is definitely going to want, once it's her on Trump, to try and actually have a hardcore debate against him where policy issues are asked, obviously rigged in her favor. And most of the media is probably going to go along with it.
Possibly.
Now, the fact is, Trump could probably say, screw the debates, I'm not going to any of them, and still get pretty much the vote he's going to get anyway. But I think he's going to want the spotlight. I mean, he's going to have some requirements on it.
He's going to go to the debate, I could guarantee that, but that's part of the problem. They'll try and screw him in the debate when really they should be trying to have an honest debate, because if they try and screw him in the debate, that
just helps him.
Yes, that just helps him.
No. What they really need is actually a hard-hitting debate in which they hit Hillary Clinton with hard questions and then they hit Trump with hard questions, make it look as fair as they possibly can, and make them both look bad, just make Trump look worse.
Yeah.
If they want to actually destroy Trump's momentum. But frankly, I think they're going to look at the same poll numbers that I'm looking at and think, this guy's a joke. Yeah, he managed to screw up the Republicans because they split their vote between all those different candidates, but there's no chance of him actually winning against Hillary, so we don't need to take him seriously. We'll just make fun of him.
Yeah, but I've been looking at
which gives them his actual shot of potentially winning.
Looking at similar numbers, and I'm thinking, again, if he keeps the amount of support and the turn up, he has a real shot.
Yeah, I think you're underestimating the amount of hate there is out there for him.
Oh no, I know how much hate there is out for him. Look, I have a sympathetic view towards Trump, but I don't think he should be president of the United States. But I'm taking this in a more reasonable approach of what he's saying, what he might represent, and things that he's done, and looking at his policies. Other people, especially on the left, have looked at him and said, "Oh God, it's Hitler, 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 Hitler." You know who's like Trump? Hitler. Hitler was nothing like Donald Trump.
Well, actually, there is an element to Hitler's campaigning and barnstorming around Germany, which is somewhat similar. But then again, the problem is that Hitler was one of the inventors of the modern form of political campaigning. So
Yeah.
all politicians actually owe to the legacy of Hitler.
That Hitler was a well-educated man who was actually, at least in German, quite eloquent, and actually had a fairly good war record.
Oh, he actually had an excellent war record, although it's been somewhat disguised and sort of tried to be explained away. The fact was, we have every evidence that he was a brave soldier who did his job very well.
Yes.
And deserved the medals he got.
Yes, and he was incredibly charismatic, and everyone that met him in person, well, most people that met him in person came to like him and say nice things about him.
Yes,
until he tried to kill them.
Yes, apparently he was incredibly personable. He was just a horrible, horrible human being.
Trump? Few people who have met Donald Trump actually like him in person.
No, face to face as a person. Yeah, no, it was actually, there was some comments, I believe, Penn Jillette said that actually Donald Trump's kids came up to him and asked him if he actually liked Donald Trump, because apparently none of the other contestants actually liked Donald.
Yeah.
And Penn Jillette, although he definitely doesn't want to support Trump for president, actually, says he actually, and I believe him, likes Donald Trump. He likes interacting with him because he's such an honest, just whatever is on the top of his mind comes out his mouth type person. But apparently he was pretty much the only one out of all the contestants on The Apprentice who genuinely liked Donald.
Yeah. The only one. And also, he's not that eloquent. He's not that personal. You can see how he is. He is basically appealing to that whole kind of manliness. And another difference, like if you look at him, he is not actually blaming all of America's problems on Muslims. Whereas Hitler really did try and blame all of Germany's problems on the Jews.
Yeah, but mind you, is a long-standing prejudice of the time, and there have been previous politicians in other European countries like France, which had also attempted to blame all their problems on the Jews.
Trump, I really don't understand what's going on with the Muslims in the Middle East. This frightens me somewhat. Hitler, I know exactly what's going on with the Jews. You've been fed lies by children. What's really happening is they have a massive conspiracy called the Elders of Zion, or it's the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And they plan to kill us all or make us into their slaves.
Well, remember, Hitler and the other Nazis tended to throw in the whole Mason movement as well. So if there was this big conspiracy, they just sort of hinted that the Jews were sort of the organizing principle behind all of it, because the Masons were heavily associated with the British government, and the British government of the previous time had the Disraelis, who were Jews, actually in charge of it.
Yes, but If you get into specifics, yes, there's a lot of things we could go into the rise of Hitler, the actual rise of Hitler, but still.
But yes, no, Trump's
Hit-
statements are not Hitler's statements. Trump's statements are, I don't understand what is going on, then saying vaguely racist things about people, groups of people,
No,
and then somewhat pulling it back at a later date and then refusing to apologize for it.
yes, but he, at its core, he is not blaming Muslims for America's problems. Hell, he's not even really blaming the Chinese for America's problems. He's just saying that they're playing the game and that America's playing poorly. His whole thing to make America great again is that we need to get rid of the stupid people in power and we need to make smart decisions and smart deals and put America first at those deals. This is not Hitlerian talk.
No, it's standard nationalism.
Yeah, no,
it's standard nationalism. At the most extreme, it's possibly a form of fascism.
Yeah, that's where it's at. The people that are actually doing the Hitlerian talk are the progressives. Where, what's the problem with the Middle East? The Jews. Why is there not enough diversity in America? White men.
Yes, no, the fact is the people who have a specific target picked out for them to blame, and that everything is to blame, the patriarchy is to blame for everything, or is right now the more extreme portion of the left.
Yeah. No, that is the actual Hitlerian talk where they have discussions on, well, where do Asians really hit on the progressive tree? Should we really classify Asians along with white men as the oppressors? Here's why.
No, it's white men, Jews, and Asians. But only the lighter-skinned Asians. Only the East Asians. Not the dark-skinned Asians. The dark-skinned Asians are still oppressed.
The Japanese and the Chinese.
Yes. Or at least the Chinese, which are currently, overrepresented in our universities.
Yes.
And are doing well financially in this country.
Yes. Everyone else is oppressed. And if only these groups of people would recognize their oppression or die, everything would be okay.
Now. There's implications of a final solution, and there's nutcases on the internet, but none of them have actually ever advocated camping or the actual elimination of their enemy.
Fine, but Hitler also didn't campaign for the extermination of the Jews.
No,
he just blamed them for all of the problems that were happening.
And said we'd be better off without them.
Yeah. And even would say things like, I want to have a thing where the Jews aren't trying to ruin us all the time, and I'd like them to be a part of our German state, but there's going to be a point where the German people will run out of patience with them. With the implication of what that was going to be.
Yes, and although they are to the position to implement it, yes, there are certain people on the regressive left who have made similar statements.
Yeah.
However, I am not expecting the concentration camps to appear anytime soon. Besides, the backlash is building against them, and Trump is an example of it.
Yes, no, I do not expect it's going to lead to backlash. I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy and also the reason why the progressives shouldn't be given as much of a carte blanche as they've been constantly being given. Like, even Trump's movement in the Republican Party is not going to last. Even if Trump is elected president, it will. It is
going to burn out with him.
Yes, it will burn out with him, even if he wins.
If he loses, then no, there's going to be a Trump wing of the Republican Party for a little while yet to go.
Yes.
Heck, it might even throw up a candidate who's actually could be a good presidential candidate.
Yes. And also, even with the Hitlerian comparison, the biggest one that is the rhetoric they're kind of using, and Trump isn't actually like Hitler too, even then, the progressives are actually different than Nazi ideology. They have a whole slew of other horrifically stupid shit they're going to do that does not involve concentration camps.
No, but the real problem is they fixated on a particular semi-imaginary enemy who's to blame for all their problems, and then fixated on a particular group of people who effectively are privileged by that enemy.
Yes.
And that needs to be solved. And if people in power believe that, that's never a good thing, even if most of them never go as far as Hitler.
Yes, no, I don't imagine they will put everyone people into concentration camps. However, I could see things like having your taxes based on your ethnic heritage.
Oh, you mean like that app which basically divided up the check for your restaurant visit based on your privilege?
Yes. White people pay one rate of taxes, other people pay another rate of taxes. Women will pay another rate, and so on and so on.
Yeah, that's never going to come to the United States.
No, but it might be one of the ideas put forward by the Tumblr progressive social justice candidate that I foresee in the Democrats' future.
Yes, it is possible they will look at it as a form of positive discrimination to right the wrongs of society.
Yes. Because it's going to happen. Maybe not Letta Dunham, but there's plenty of real.
Well, let's see how things turn out with the U.S. presidential campaign, because a lot of these things are bubbling behind the scenes. But there's also a very good chance, as I say, once it comes down to a Hillary versus Trump fight, or whatever Republican versus Democrat fight, a bunch of this culture war stuff, which they've largely been ignoring, are now going to become campaign points.
Yes, it is. And we'll see where that goes. And I'm thinking, at the end of the day, I'm not 75% sure. I'm thinking 60%. I'm leaning towards Trump is going to become the president.
Yeah, I still think it's a long shot.
Well, we'll see. At the very least, I'm having a decent track record at the moment. I did say, there's a good chance of Trump winning. We should look at Trump, so and so, and this is why Trump is probably going to go as far as it has. And it turns out I've been, for the most part, right.
All right, you've been more right than wrong.
Yes.
I will definitely give you that.
I mean, the biggest blunder in my political predicting was that there was no way in hell Justin Trudeau was going to become Prime Minister of Canada. And the Canadians proved me wrong.
Well, Canada's been going through its own throwouts, the old thing, getting the new thing.
You mean getting in the old thing back? The party that has ruled Canada for most of its history.
Yes, but Justin Trudeau campaigned as a new thing, and Alberta, the most conservative of conservative state provinces in Canada, has gone NDP, at least temporarily, and they've elected in effectively a person who sort of out left-winged the NDP.
No. Although we could, just to finish that, look, he basically portrayed himself to one group of people as a center left economy person, and then to other people as a far leftist. He was both right and far left of the NDP. When the NDP had basically gone to a centrist position, they just never could really get that message out.
Well, nobody would carry that message.
Yeah. But okay, we've beaten this to death. I'll talk to you later, man.
All right, yes, that'll be enough. We'll talk again later.